I'm here today in London. There's a bike show this evening, and I've got the opportunity to meet with Alex, who's here from Road Grand Tours. So, Alex, you're about to launch your product out of beta into the public domain. So, tell us about RGT.
So first of all, we're leaving behind the whole idea of Road Grand Tours because it's a little bit of a mouthful. So we're just going to go by RGT from now on.
Okay.
And as you said, we're about to launch in the next few weeks. It's something we've been working on for the last couple of years, taking it easy and building the technology. And I think now we're finally at a point where we have a product usable by the committed athletes, the people that train, that race, and so on. So we're focusing very much on just that segment of the market. We want to deliver something that's truly useful to them and as revolutionary as we can make it for the time being.
Okay. So you say about training and about racing.
Mm-hmm.
A big part of the indoor training scene at the minute has also been doing entertainment as well. Where do you see RGT on that, sort of trifecta of training, racing, and just fun riding?
Well, I think there's a lot of overlap between them. I don't think they're very separate things. I think training could be made fun, and that's one of the really powerful things. One of the powerful potential in the virtual world is that we can imagine very interesting things, very different things than what's possible in real life.
So what is it that RGT's got at the moment with regard to training that is looking at that?
So first of all, I'll be honest, not much for the beginning, but we're very much building towards that. So we're going to start with a very simple training module that we're going to build on top to make it more interactive, more interesting. But there's a little bit of that. So when I say not much, I'm just compared to the things we have on our to-do list. To me, right now, it seems like we're not shipping a lot. But there are a few things even in this first phase. So one of the things we're going to launch is something called Magic Roads, which is the ability for RGT to ingest a GPX and give you a 3D fully very sort of true to life kind of road surface that you can ride on. The elevation, the left, right, and so on. And this is designed for athletes to do reconnaissance for an event, if they want to train for a triathlon and they want to get the pacing right, if you train for a TT or you just want to rewrite a ride you've ridden, or for race organizers. Like there are a lot of small organizers that have a little event around the area that they want to bring it online, and there's obviously a really high barrier of entry. In the virtual world, it's obviously pretty difficult to design an environment. It takes a long time, and this we see as a big opportunity for these small organizers to really bring their events into the virtual world just by uploading a GPX, getting a 3D version of their event and running it as a weekly event or daily event in the virtual space.
I've been playing around with Magic Road on the beta that you sent out, and I can see how that could grow to be quite a powerful driver for RGT. I mean, the TAC desktop app, that has a similar feature, but that's just using a map overview. So
right.
In many ways, you don't get that immersion that you've got. There's a route that I've been training of. Admittedly, I know the route, so I have the advantage of knowing where the corners are for when I actually do the race.
Yeah.
But if I'm just using a map overview, I don't have quite the same input to help me psychologically prepare where to push.
Right.
Is that something that over time you might be able to take input from, say, Google Maps to give a really real-world image about what people are seeing? Or will it always be a generated world?
We are right now. We're starting with just the road surface. Very soon, we're going to bring in a sort of terrain environment that we generate to make it a bit more immersive. But that's definitely a possibility. The ability to pull data from different sources like Google Maps or Microsoft or different other providers like Here Maps and so on, to actually give you the terrain that is in real life around the course that you've chosen. That's definitely a possibility, but that requires a lot of development and a lot of infrastructure, and plus that data is not free. So that might become an option in the future if the user that wants to generate that road wants to pay for a more immersive environment.
So you mentioned that freedom and then what users might be prepared to pay for. So obviously the beta has been free to everyone to test for the minute.
Right.
What are you expecting in terms of the structure? Some companies have gone down a freemium route, whereas some have just, this is a simple pay for play. What's RGT's model going to be?
So before we get to the model, I think it's important to understand the reason that that we are doing what we're doing with RGT, and the reason is I think there's a huge amount of potential in the virtual world. If the whole world of cycling, the industry and the community and everybody in cycling has access to the virtual world, can do with the virtual world what they do with the outside world, you know, like go on a road and ride with their friends, or organize an event, or put together something like the Tour de France, you know, that whole spectrum. I think once that happens in the virtual world, we're going to get a real equivalent of what cycling is in real life happening in the virtual world. We're going to get the diversity, and we're going to get the, you know, innovation and the variety that you get in the real world, and that's what attracts people to cycling, because everybody wants something a bit different. You know, some people are into time trials, some people are into road races, some people are into climbs, some people are into flat routes, and so on. And I think the moment we're going to start enabling the industry and the community to really have ownership over the virtual space, that's when we're going to see this variety starting to happen. But that I don't think that is compatible with a pay-to-play kind of model. There cannot be a wall that divides people that are in or versus people that are out. I'll give you a very simple example of a cycling club, right? You have 50 or 100 people that ride together, you know, let's say regularly in the summer, a Sunday ride. That ride I don't think is ever going to happen virtually if everybody has to commit to paying a subscription or paying for a certain product, which is why a big part of RGT is always going to be free, to enable the whole cycling community to come in. Like, I'll give you many examples. So the first one being the club that I just mentioned. You know, for that club to be able to do what they do in the summer in the virtual space, they have to all be able to meet there without committing to a subscription. A pro team that wants to bring their fans and do and put together a really nice event. Let's say they want a stage and they want to celebrate with their fans, and they want to get their riders to have a cool down ride with their fans. I don't think it's reasonable for them to say, oh yeah, come join us, but by the way, you have to pay for a subscription to be able to join us. Or a brand that wants to do an activation and they want to put something really cool together for their customers. So that's why we're trying to find this balance between, obviously, you know, being a business and generating revenue, which lets us grow and do more cool stuff, and this idea of democratizing virtual riding and giving everybody access into the virtual space. So we are going towards something like a freemium model, where some of the features are monetized, features that are more targeted towards you know, higher end users, people that are more interested in using more advanced features, whereas the more basics, access into the virtual space, just riding the roads or joining events, is always going to be free in RGT.
So Magic Road is an example. That would be one of the paid premium features.
No, for now, yes. But I mean, I always want to stress the fact that we are and we always will be a work in progress. We are gonna work on the product and make the product fit the needs of our users continuously. So things will change, and the same thing will happen with the business model.
So who is RGT? There's quite a lot of virtual competitors at the minute. We've got Zwift, sort of really pushing the entertainment angle. You know, Fast is fun. Kino Map is there about user-generated content.
Right.
Rovi is there putting virtual reality riders in the real world and competing on that. TAC is covering very much the indoor training and 3D maps. Where does RGT fit into that? Where's your slice that makes you independent and different?
Well, we are everybody's virtual space. So we want to be the virtual space that anybody in cycling, like I said, from a couple of people riding together all the way to you know, the Tour de France, find a home there. They find a way to do what they want to do. They find a way to bring their friends around an event. They find that they have a way to, you know, just have fun with a couple of buddies, or put together an event, or train for a triathlon, or get their coaching done, or provide services and so on. We truly want to democratize virtual cycling. We don't want it to be ours. We want it to be everybody's.
So you say you want it to be everybody, and if we want to put on an event with other companies, there's several hurdles to go through for an official event to be put together. Right. If I say, right, I want to do a Thursday club ride, how do I make that happen on RGT?
So once we launch, this is going to be one of the premium features. All you have to do is the organizer has to have a premium account, and then within 1 minute they can set up that event whenever they want, wherever they want, and whatever conditions they want. So they can choose, for example, I want 5 laps around Borrego Springs on Saturday night at 8 p.m. You just create that event, and then you share with your friends, and everybody else can join it for free, and that's it. You don't have to talk to us, you don't have to do anything. We just enabled you to have your own event within 1 minute.
So much more like Facebook, events, than you're going to share that,
Exactly.
rather than have a central repository of these events that are going on.
Absolutely, yeah.
In terms of developing something like this, you're going to go through major roadblocks and big challenges on the road.
Yeah.
What's been the biggest challenge you've had so far?
Oh, I don't know if there's a single one I can point out, because it's just being such a large undertaking. It's just a series of never-ending challenges. I think the biggest challenge is not to stop. It's just to keep going and solve problem by problem and try and find the best solution that we can, even though it might not be the orthodox one, the usual one. And it's just that believing in ourselves, believing that what we're doing is the right thing. And like I said, that's become easier and easier as more people joined us and said, yeah, like that's cool. I want to do that with you.
Let me flip it the other way then. So you're doing these challenges and you are overcoming them. What's been the time when you said, yeah, we nailed that, I'm really proud of how we got round that problem?
So there are a couple of things. One on the technology side. So we've obviously had moments when things were tough, that did not work. We're trying to do a few things that haven't been done before. And on the technology side, one of those moments was when we got the drafting right. So that's been something we've been working on since the beginning, to try and really replicate the feel of cycling, to have the physics be real, the drafting, and so on and so on. And the drafting wasn't quite there. Everybody that's been on the beta knows that it was a bit. It felt okay, but it wasn't great. So we've done a lot of work this summer, and Christian, one of the team members, is a brilliant guy, and he's been working a lot. Like, he spent months and months on the new drafting, and we had one of those aha moments when he got us to try his new version of the drafting, and it just felt right. It felt so good after all the work we've put together to make sure that the math is right, and we do things in a very complex way to hopefully get it right. The moment where we felt we got it right was absolutely amazing. When we jumped with James on one of the flat courses, and we did a couple of laps, and we didn't want to stop it. It just felt like it felt like real traffic. Okay. That was a fantastic moment. So that's on the technology side, and there were a few of these moments on the business side where, like I said, I don't have a very a sort of historic background in business. I come from much more of a tech, computer science, math kind of background. So the business side is a bit new to me, and I've always tried to take it sort of as best I could through my own eyes, like not just follow what people are doing, but just go with what I think is right. And there have been a few of those moments on the business side where my ideas that I thought were maybe a bit weird were validated by people, and they said, yeah, this feels right. So it's been very encouraging.
RGT has definitely come from a long way from some of the early betas that we've seen at the NEC Cycle Show and things like that. Is there one bit that you have found most enjoyable to use when you're riding it yourself?
Yeah, it's so the new physics make a big difference for me, especially in multiplayer scenarios, so races and just riding with people together, trying to draft each other. It just gives you that same feel that you get in real life. And that's really powerful, because that's sort of that togetherness that we're all looking for, and replicating that in virtual space, I think, is not as easy as it sounds, maybe. So that's been a big plus. And online races, I think, are something that has a lot of potential to become very exciting if it's done right. And I don't think we're very. I mean, we've taken a few steps, and it's a starting. It's something that's picking up online. But I think there's a long way to go until it's going to be as fun and as serious and as taken as seriously as outdoor racing.
So what do you think about esports from that side?
Same thing. I think there's a huge amount of potential, but I think we're right at the beginning. I think there are a lot of fundamentally different things that need to happen for people to truly embrace it and for it to grow like outdoor racing.
So what do you think those hurdles are then?
Well, first of all, cheating. I think that it's maybe the elephant in the room, but I think it's safe to say that most people won't believe in it, won't really get invested in it until they believe it's truly fair. And there are some obvious issues with people, lying about their weight or changing their power and not really being fair. And then the second thing I think that's missing in online racing is the incentives that really make the organizers own their space. So what allows this kind of ecosystem to grow is, for example, more resources, the ability for an organizer to attract sponsors, to generate revenue, to grow their event, to put together a more interesting experience for the people joining it. And I think we're at the beginning of that, but I think there's a lot more work to be done on that really.
Now you mentioned sponsorships there, so currently in RGT you've got Laser, you've got Decathlon, you've got BMC Bikes. Is that a formal partnership you've set up, or is this something that you're doing with sponsorship? What's the arrangement there?
So it's the first steps towards that mission that I was talking about of really empowering the industry and the whole cycling community as a whole to be able to take advantage of the virtual space in whichever way they want. So we want to show that there's a place for brands to show off their products, to put together experiences for their user base, their customers, and so on. And it's something that's central to the RGT model. We truly want it to be everybody. So we want to slowly validate all of these use cases. We want to show that a pro team has a way of using the platform. We want to show that a brand has a way of using the platform. We want to show that a club has a way of using the platform, that coaches have a way of using the platform, and so on.
Okay, so you say that with clubs. So I'm in a cycle club, I've got a jersey, I think it's fabulous. How do I go about getting that on RGT? Is that something I have to go through yourselves, put in applications and things?
So for now we're going to start offering the service of people being able to put their jersey so that they can identify themselves as the club. That's going to be something that comes in the near future, probably in the spring, where we're going to have more functionality around the whole team club structure. But ultimately we want to get to a point where it's automated, where the barrier of entry is so low that any club can just instantly have ownership in the virtual space. They can create a club, they can attach they can put their shirts in, they can create events, they can put sponsorships on those events and so on.
Okay. I mean, it sounds an awful lot like you're giving a huge amount of functionality away for free. How are you going to get your super yacht?
Well, I'm not doing this to get a super yacht, first of all. So I've started this for like I said, a love of cycling and a love of technology. I think it's the perfect project for me. But slowly I've realized that there's a huge amount of potential in revolutionizing fitness as a whole and making it more accessible, more fun, more interesting, more successful. Because as we know, a lot of people try and stay fit. They try and pick up cycling. They try to have a good active life, but it's very difficult. Time constraints, weather, and just those are the obvious ones. But there's also the obvious lack of motivation. It's very hard to start being fit and keeping at it if you're not already used to it. And I think that's where we can do a huge amount. I think that's where where technology has a huge amount of potential to change. Let's say half the world's population's lives, and just bringing sport to them, making it accessible, making it easy, making it. I'll give you an example. Like coaches are most of these hard journeys, like education or medicine, for example, and so on. There's a massive amount of reward at the end, but the journey is very hard. So usually we rely on somebody like a teacher to teach us things so that we can graduate and we can become a doctor and so on. Or in medicine, obviously you need to learn from other people to be able to do something as complex. And I think fitness definitely falls in that category. It's something that's very hard at the beginning. It's a journey that is fraught with sort of dangers. Like it's really easy to give it up. There are hard times and so on where it's hard to stay motivated, hard to continue, and so on. And in most of these circumstances, it's another person that helps you. But right now, like in sports, obviously that's the coach and the personal trainer. But not a lot of people have access to this. It's usually a bit expensive. Like even in cycling, not a lot of people use coaching services because they are expensive, even though the value is fantastic. So technology has the potential of spreading those services towards a huge amount of the population. For example, if a coach has the possibility in the virtual space of running a clinic with 20 people, then each person has to pay a very, very small amount of money to the coach for that class to happen, as opposed to the one-on-one sort of relationship that you have today in real life. And virtual space can enable that. You can have those 20 people come from anywhere in the world and participate into that clinic and get the benefit of having the guidance of a coach and the experience and the motivation of a coach, thereby democratizing that. And I think that's the potential of virtual sports. So we're starting here. We're doing this in cycling because obviously we're very familiar. We love cycling, and it's obviously the one of the best places to start a tech sports sort of business now because of all the technology in cycling. But I think long term, that's my super yacht. That's where I want to get to. That's what I want to get done. I want to find a way to use technology to bring fitness to as many people as possible, to make it as accessible as possible.
Now, you've said about making RGT for everybody and letting them own the space.
Yeah.
But as you said, using the teacher example, you do sometimes need to show people that the thing is available. Is RGT going to have a health component to it? So you'll for example log in and say, right, I want to race, I want to do entertainment, I want to do health. Will you actually have something clearly signposted, or will that stay with the user?
It's a little bit of the App Store approach. So if we create a place where anybody that provides services in the industry, coaches and brands, products, health services, and so on, can have a stake. They can promote their services. They can deliver their services. I think the market is going to self-regulate. If there is demand for that, it's gonna come up to the surface. It's just like app stores, right? Like on the app store, if there's a new trend, if there's a demand for something, then supply will happen.
But on the same side of that, if you look, you've got Google Play Store, which is the Wild West, which is purely an unregulated market. And then we've got iOS, where you have to put in your application, say, we think we're going to do this. Will there be any oversight from RGT, or will a random coach be able to say, I've got a great idea, even if there's no evidence to support his idea? Will RGT take care of their users in that way, or will it just be, as you say, an open market?
I think it's a balance between the two. It's we obviously don't want users to have bad experiences, but at the same time we want the flexibility of the industry and of the whole space to explore new ideas. So it's a balance that we'll probably look at finding, but I can't answer that today. I don't know exactly how we're going to go. Like I said, RGT is always going to be a work in progress. We're always going to be flexible. We're always going to be agile to make sure we respond to the needs of the market, to the users, to the industry, and that requires taking a real look in the mirror and saying, are we doing the right thing today? And if that answer is no, then we will change.
Okay. So while I've been using the beta of RGT, you log in on the computer and it asks you to put 4 digits into your phone.
Right.
Now that seems to be a bit of a barrier. I can't just jump on and ride. Why do I have to, log into the phone as well?
So very, very common question, and it's something that we definitely want to clear out. So there are a couple of reasons. First of all is the user experience. I don't believe in the whole idea of having to need a keyboard and a mouse, and like that's just a terrible thing. The Logitech keyboard, you start sweating and you can't use a touchpad anymore. Not a lot of people have access to a table or something like that. So just being able to do all of the control, all of the input and output is much easier done on the phone. Everybody has a phone. Everybody's very, most of the phones these days are waterproof, so it's not an issue if you start sweating. So it just makes sense from a technological point of view. The second point is the use case. We don't only want to serve this use case of you doing your thing at home on your nicely set up painting. There are a whole bunch of other cases of maybe you and your wife sharing your one setup. So 2 people sharing the same setup at home, or you go into the bike shop and doing a training session because maybe you don't have space for a trainer at home, so you prefer to go to a cycling studio or a bike shop and do things, and they would have a setup waiting for you there. So all you would have to do is just take your phone, go there and connect with those 4 digits to their screen, and all of a sudden all of your content is there. You don't have to tell them, download my stuff, put my stuff there. It's one screen that's sort of, you know, neutral, waiting for anybody, and you connect, you do your workout, you disconnect, none of your data remains on that screen. That screen is completely neutral.
So the phone's almost becoming my RGT passport, if you will.
There you go, exactly. Your phone is your content, your identity, everything, and you can bring it anywhere. You can bring it home, you can go to a friend's house, you can go to a trade show and connect, and so on and so on. You can go to a bike shop that maybe has a promotion or something like that, you know, if you connect to their screen, you get some content, and so on and so on. And then the third reason is that right now the graphics, they run locally. They run on your iPad, they run on your Mac or your PC or your Apple TV. But in the future, as we push technology, I don't think it's going to be reasonable to ask people to have a lot of available computing power. You know, if we want to make the graphics better and better and more immersive, I don't think it's reasonable, especially in the sports space, because we're not in the gaming space. We can't expect people to have a AAA gaming machine, you know, with a super powerful video card and so on to run the latest graphics. The direction that the industry is going is towards cloud rendering.
So like Google Stadia and things
Absolutely,
like that.
exactly, like Google Stadia. But the problem with Google Stadia is that you can't really have that keyboard and mouse, like all the lying on the cloud, right? Like the computer is maybe hundreds of miles or thousands of miles away from you. So you need all of your input and output to be local. You need all of your input and output to be separate from the computer that's rendering. And that's exactly what the phone does for you, right? Like you can connect your Bluetooth devices there, you can do your chatting, you can do your actions like turn around, change camera angles, wave at people, you know, choose the road that you ride on, and all of that stuff happens on the phone. And then we're going to be able to truly democratize access to these kind of really, really good experiences. Then you're going to be able to go with your phone and just connect to a smart TV or connect to a gym machine, right? Like to a treadmill or to a stationary bike that has an integrated screen. And that bike or that smart TV at home or that tablet maybe from 3 years ago or so is going to be able to give you the same experience that a AAA gaming, you know, computer will be able to give you without having to download anything, without having to buy high-end hardware, without having to set it up and all that stuff. It's just on demand, instant access to really, really good high-end 3D experience.
So that initial seeming small barrier of entry is actually going to lower barriers across the user base.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So it's really to prepare us for the future.
Because personally, you see it with Zwift and with respect even RGT, you log on to the Apple TV app and the graphics are, what's the phrase I'm looking for? Naff. But I can see actually, if you're able to then use a Google Stadia approach to give me better graphics, still on that same box, that's a win as far as I'm concerned.
And not better, but it's really revolutionary graphics. Like for us to push the limits and do, you know, much more realistic graphics, much more longer environments, right? Like if we want to give you the possibility of doing the whole Tour de France, right? Like let's say 3,000 kilometers of cycling. Imagine having to download that. It would be gigs and gigs, like maybe people wouldn't even have space for it, or they wouldn't have the patience to wait and download things for a couple hours just to be able to ride, you know, up some passes in super high HD. On the cloud, that's instantly available. You don't have to wait at all. All of that power and all of that high fidelity graphics is available to you absolutely instantly, on any device as well.
Something like that though, that's very much the field of, you know, Activision, EA Sports and things like that. That's serious computational power you're talking about. Is this something that RGT are going to do themselves, or are you looking to partner up with them?
Oh no, absolutely, it's something we'll leverage. I think it's the right time in the industry. I mean, look, just you said Stadia. Stadia is enabling the industry to deliver, you know, console level experiences on any device. And not only that, but to have really good integration with, for example, streaming. So what Stadia is demoing is you're looking at a streamer, somebody that's running a game or something like that, and you're looking at them on YouTube, and you want to join that. You want to be part of that experience. You could click a button on YouTube, and within 3 seconds, you can join that experience. You can be in the same instance, you can be in the same world that they're in. Translate that to cycling. You're watching a virtual race, and you want to spectate, or you want to actually join and race. You do one click and within 3 seconds you're there. You don't have to download stuff, you don't have to do anything. You just have your phone for your Bluetooth and your connection, but then your whatever you've been watching YouTube on, whether it's your laptop, whether it's your smart TV or some old tablet from 5 years ago that could never run 3D graphics, it's instantly available for you in super high HD. And that's the necessity. That's why we did the app today, so we can do that kind of stuff tomorrow.
Now that sounds impressive. I'll be honest, I'm a little bit skeptical because that's amazing. But you know, you take it 2050, you're watching the Tour de France, as you say, you press the YouTube button and load up on that particular segment. That'll be cool.
Exactly, and I know it sounds a little bit like sci-fi, but we actually have this in R&D internally. We have a version of RGT running on the cloud on our own infrastructure. So we have a Linux version of RGT that is controllable from the phone, and it runs on the cloud, and you can access on demand. But we're not going to build our own infrastructure. We are really committed to building RGT. We're not a company that's going to start competing with Google on building infrastructure. So we'd much more prefer to leverage, you know, huge projects like Stadia and put RGT on there rather than build our own solution.
Okay. Wow. So literally watch this space.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of cool stuff coming. And it's not only about the delivery, but it's also what we deliver. So there's a lot of work we're doing in the really raising the graphics, raising the quality of the physics and the graphics that you'll see slowly coming over the next few years.
Okay.
But this is what enables us to go in that direction. So it might not make a lot of sense right now, but it's definitely something that's an absolute necessity to make the future happen.
Well, thank you. I mean, Alex, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and I think it sounds like you've got, you know, quite some visions for the future. Thank you.
Thanks.
So can you sum up RGT? You're a very, very eloquent chap. Can you sum up RGT in one sentence?
It's. I hope it will become a complement to outside, a place where people see it as diverse and as welcome as the roads outside.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you very much, Alex. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. It really has.
Thank you.